Let's go and get some things ready to go. Let me encourage you this morning to stick around towards the end. We've got two new services that are free for you to take a look at. We have a new YouTube channel, and so we'll talk about that right at the end of our webinar. And then we want to talk a little bit about the AI newsletter. If you're not getting that or you're not aware of it, so I want to talk about those two things right at the end. Both of those are going to be free for you. So it's 10 o'clock, so let's get going this morning. So good morning, and so it's good to have you as you're signing in. Today we're going to be talking about leading renewal, guiding projects toward fresh beginnings. So let me give you kind of a topic statement of what we're doing and why we're doing this. One of the things we're going to look at today in this webinar is we're looking at being able to use projects to be able to shift your organization, to be able to allow your organization to go to create change, to create culture change and organizational change. Many of you maybe have been reading in other journals, and you maybe have noticed from PMI, this has become a hot topic in the last 2 years because organizations are wanting to make cultural changes to better fit with millennials and Gen Z, and that means that they're having to come up with a strategy for it, and projects is what they're using. So today we're going to talk about this. This has gotten so much airtime that it is now adjusting a little bit even on your PMP test, so that you've got some components on that test that actually refer to some of these things. So I thought this would be a great topic for us to look at this year and to be able to go through it. So if you're clicking along here and following with us, then you'll get a video from Kim obviously afterwards. But let's go ahead and jump into and do a deep dive into this for the next hour. So leading renewal, guiding projects toward fresh beginnings. So executive success. So let's start all the way as we look and start comparing what organizations are trying to do. They're trying to be successful. And so executives looking at and are trying to do several pieces. And so one of the things that you're looking at when you look at executives is great on handling change or weak on handling renewal. And so what has happened is that people have started trying to make change, but they've kind of left project management out of the sequence. And so those organizations over the years that have done this, they've got change project happening, then they've got their normal projects happening, and it's like two separate organizational systems. And many of you that are living in this, you're going, oh my gosh, that's us. Okay, I get it. And so what's happening is that you're seeing project management bring that together to say, okay, you're trying to have organizational change, use projects to drive that. And so that has been very successful. So you're starting to see even some of your operational research and writing talk about why not run it with a project, which makes so much more sense. So organizational change, transitioning from where you are to the future is going to be very, very important. And so organizations are having to adjust. If nothing else, you're having to adjust for AI. Right now, I'm in the middle of writing a program and finishing up a program on how to run an AI project. I'm actually scheduled to test it with my guys out in Washington, D.C. with Dieter's team. And so we're going to be out there testing that new program on how do you run an AI project. So that's going to change the whole dynamics of what we do. It's going to open up some things and speed some things up that we typically are kind of heavy on time for us right now. But it's also going to allow us to have some options of some things that maybe we've never had before. So what you're doing is you're looking at the current state and then you're looking at the future state. So what we're talking about today is not that those two pieces have been there the whole time. All organizations have had to evolve and change for the future. But what you're seeing that's a little different is this right here, where people and organizations are starting to use projects to drive it to that future state. And each of those projects are being measured not only in measuring a project, but they're being measured in strategic objectives and strategic goals because they're trying to drive those components in that direction. So this is one of the important pieces is how can I look at my local project, my small project that I'm running, and fit it into that strategic piece, and also know that this is driving the organization toward those new changes, those new directions. So one of the things that we have dealt with, and maybe your organization is dealing with this too, is we have projects, but many times they're fragmented projects. We're running a project, but it doesn't necessarily connect to the strategic objective, or we don't know why or how it's being connected to a strategic objective. And then you've got projects aligned with strategy. The projects that align with strategy typically are running much easier and faster because it makes sense to everybody. It's touching that strategic goal. Management and executives are all on board with it. They understand understand this is a big time project, and this is doing that, and so they are very supportive of what you're needing to do to reach that objective because it's driving a strategic initiative. The problem with this is those of you guys who have such a difficult time with your strategy because your strategies keep changing, your initiatives keep changing. And so some of you are in some industries that things are just changing either because of the influence of new leadership or just because of the influence of culture, and it just changes that dynamic tremendously. So let's talk about two pieces of this. We're going to talk about renewal, but we want to differentiate renewal from transformation because those are going to be a little bit different as we're looking at both of these pieces. So definition of project renewal. Renewal is a deliberate use of a project to revitalize your mindset, your energy, your culture, and direction within an organization while providing its intended outcome. We can have renewal. It focuses on restoring the project so that the organization leaves the project healthier, more aligned, more resilient than before it started. And project renewal is about re-energizing the people, the culture through the project, not just completing the task. One of the things that you're starting to see is that because project management is such an important piece of almost every organization, is some projects have hiccups along the way. And so you get behind, and sometimes what happens, the prioritization of those projects change. And so you'll notice that your number one project today is number 3 tomorrow. I'm sure it's different in your case, but that's what I'm seeing. And so the number one project is now number 3, and now you're struggling for resources, or you're struggling to get the people that you thought you were going to have. And so your project starts struggling a little bit and getting behind. And so we have to re-engage it and be able to get that project back on track to where it's going to be profitable and hit those intended pieces. When we're talking about renewal, a lot of times that's that independent project that's out here. You typically don't have as much problems with this when you're talking about transformation. When you're running a project and it's connected to a strategy and part of that strategic plan, it typically is a little bit better. So let's talk about it from project transformation, because this is going to be connected a little bit stronger. So project transformation is using a project to drive fundamental changes in structure, strategy, systems, organizational design. It focuses on altering how the organization operates at a foundational level to achieve new performance levels, market positions, or operating models. Project transformation is about changing the structure of what makes the organization the organization. And so what you're doing is you're looking at through the eyes of project management. What can I do to run a project? Here in our little company, we run everything in projects today. I mean, everything. If we're writing a course, it's a project. If we're marketing something, it's a project. If we're writing a newsletter, that's going to be a project. We typically look at it from the eyes of a project, some bigger, some smaller, but that's what we do. Many organizations are starting to do that as they transform it. In other words, they're able to package it into a project with someone with some expertise to lead that and guide that and reach certain objectives. And that's what you're starting to see become a phenomenon across the business world, is people are going from isolated project to transformational type projects, to where we've got 7 projects, but it's leading toward the organization being different at the end of 12 months or 18 months, whatever it is. So let's give you an executive summary comparison of this, just to make sure that you're catching on what I'm talking about here, because it does require a totally different mindset, okay? So if you look at the focus for a project renewal, it's going to be energy, culture alignment, different pieces of this. None of that's wrong. But if you look at it from a transformation standpoint, you're looking at structure, strategy, systems, because you're driving the organization in a particular direction. Primary outcome for project renewal, revitalization, momentum, because a lot of times you're doing it to get a project back on track. If you look at it from a transformation standpoint, fundamental organizational change. Our organization will be different in 18 months. We will do business different. We will have more technology taking care of these things. And if you're looking at AI, everything you're doing is heading toward organizational change. AI will change how you do business. Nature, you're looking at continuous with project renewal, but in project transformation, it's going to be episodic. It's going to be discrete, because you're running projects to create a particular output of change. And once that's reached, you're going to then look at another output of a different kind of change. So that's how you're going to be looking at that. If we look at orientation, strengthens what exists. The project renewal, we have a project going. We're trying to get it back on track. We're trying to make sure it's working the way it should. If you're looking at project transformation, you're redesigning what exists. The way we do business today will be different in 18 months. The customer base that we have right now might be different in 18 months. We might be going after a different kind of customer, or have different products than what the customer that we presently have needs. The other is going to be a risk profile. So in Project Renewal, you lower risk and high engagement impact because once again, you're trying to get that risk, that very temporary thing finished as quick as possible with the lowest type of risk. When you're talking about project transformation and using projects to drive that change, you're going to have higher risk and structure impact. Why? Because the new organization at the end of these projects will be different. It will function different. You will have technology in place of some places that have people now. You will have people doing things differently than what they did before. And so it's going to drive that technology in some of those directions. And then lastly, leadership role, the catalyst of energy and meaning. In the Project Renewal, the project manager and the team are driving every piece of it. If you look over on project transformation, the architect of change, you're going to be using both technology and people to be able to drive change for that organization. And it's going to end up being one of these situations where we change or else. That's what we're going to see. If everybody and their projections on artificial intelligence are making sense to any of us, every one of them say the change will be better or different. Let me say this, different, not necessarily better, different and more so than what we have with the internet. And almost every one of your major visionaries out here talk about it, that the change will be larger on us with AI than it is right now with the internet, when the internet came in. All right, so let's move along a little bit further. So what you're trying to do is shift the leadership lens. And so if you're in leadership, as I know many of you are, we have to think differently. We have to look differently. And so what you're looking at here is you're looking at the project delivery. So are we doing single projects that's driving maybe some goals? Don't mistake what I'm saying. I'm not being critical because it is what it is, and it's how we've done it in the past. We typically do it that way now. But we do have to look at it differently, that project should be driving some type of change in that organization. So you're looking at project delivery, and then you're looking at organizational awakening. As AI becomes a stronger foundation for what you do, you're having to drive further in that example of organizational awakening. So how leaders frame projects and shape employees' perception and engagement. Your people are change agents. You are a change agent, whether you want to be or not. You think, I'm not changing. I get it. We don't like change. But you know what? You are. You're changing, and your organization is changing, and you're going to be and are a change agent. Now, there's some theories to consider for renewal. So let me just expose you to these. This isn't a graduate level class or anything, but these are some of the theories that's being used when people are using and putting in AI. They're having to look at some of these pieces. So let me show you a couple of things here. So many of you have maybe heard of these, and most of these are very popular and have been around for years. People are going back to some of the old mainline theories in order to make the changes and adjustments to their organizations. Most of these have been around for a long time. Most of these are very proven to help make organizational changes. And so systems theory, Senge, is one of those that has been around for a long time. Organizations are living systems, not machines. Renewal occurs when leaders intervene at the level of mental models, not just processes. So what he's talking about here, he's talking about we think differently. And he said, will our future organization think differently? And the answer is absolutely, because now you've got a technology that we've never had before that will do some amazing things. And of course, you hear about all the negatives, and you're absolutely right. We've got to put guardrails in. I'm writing that section right now. We've got to put guardrails in to be able to protect that. But the point is that on the other side of this, once we get our guardrails in, is this not going to be some unbelievable technology that is going to continue to evolve? The answer is we have to say yes, even if there's things, there's bones in it right now, like eating fish. You spit out some of the bones and protect yourself. The second is going to be complex adaptive systems. This is a system that maybe you're not heard about. It's not as popular with some of the groups as others. Organizations evolve through adaptive cycles of stability, disruption, and renewal. Now, what Holland is actually saying is that there's 3 stages here. And so for those of you who remember Tuckman with the forming, storming of teams, what he's done, he's taken this at the level of an organization: stability, disruption, and renewal. And so what he's saying is we're stable right now. And guess what? In the middle, when we're in that wilderness time of trying to shift our company, and shift our organization, your disruption. And then notice what he says. Then there'll be renewal. We're doing it differently. We'll have it maybe more streamlined. It might be faster. It might just change the whole approach of how we're doing some things. Another systems theory with Senge, this is how it looks right here. Let me make sure you get both of these. So when you're looking at Senge here, I'm sorry, I want to make sure you got it all. So this is his systems theory. So on the left-hand side, organization as a machine focuses on control, fixed processes and procedures, mechanical, linear change, short-term efficiency. We've had that anchored in for 20, 30, 40 years because if you're especially if you're in a formal organization, this is your life. You live in this area, okay? Over here on the other side, organization as a system, the focus is on relationships, transforming the mental models. We look at things different. We do business different. And you know it's about relationships, adaptive interconnections, sustainable renewal. In other words, we're going to learn more and more because this puts you more on the side of the continuous improvement like PMI talks about all the time and like is on your PMP test. And they talk about it in almost everything that we have to be changing and making improvements. That's the reason why you and I do lessons learned or retrospectives at the end of our projects is for this. But that's going to be more of a continuous improvement mindset. Over here, it's more of a keep the status quo, hold on to everything. Not being critical, I'm just saying in the tendency here is that we kind of hold on to how things used to be compared to we're going to have to evolve. Most of us understand we are in an evolution and a huge paradigm shift in the way we think and the way we do business. Now let's look at the complex adaptive theory by Holland. Organizations evolve through adaptive cycles of stability, disruption, and renewal. And so you'll notice here, over here in the bottom corner right here, you'll notice that you have stability. And so your organization maybe is in that stable mode right now. What typically will happen is we have something that disrupts us. Either maybe we lose our biggest contractor, maybe we lose our biggest customer, or maybe we are going to have to look at things differently because the product or service that we're selling right now is dwindling down. It changes the whole dynamic of everything. And the answer to that is yes, that's probably true. And so how are we going to do business in the future? You're seeing that in AI for people who are doing code. So they're testing all of the AI tools and to see which one's going to do the best coding of certain things. And so if you're a programmer, you might be looking at this thinking, I'm going to be a programmer my whole life. Maybe, and maybe not. If AI gets to a point where it programs and it will program software better than a human, people will use it because they don't have sick days and they're not going to have insurance. So that could be the disruption in your career. I bet you there's several people on here, and as I'm scanning the names, I'm looking at these. Many of you did not pick out to be a project manager. You were something else, me included. I was a pastor who ran projects at our church for building and raising money, only to turn around and leave the ministry. And guess what? I knew that I didn't call it any of the right stuff, projects. So that disruption happens and it changes you. And then, of course, there's renewal. You're doing things differently. You're thinking differently. Let's look at another one here, transformational leadership. This is BASS. Many of you have seen this. Many of your companies maybe have used something like this in other transformations that you've had. If you brought robots in, this might have changed some of the process flows, and this might have been used. But this is renewal leadership. It aligns with inspirational, motivational, individualized consideration. And so what this does, this is really transformational leadership is very highly motivated. And so you'll see a lot of different people who will use components of this. Nothing wrong with it, even though it's been around a long time. Adaptive leadership. Hives and Linsky, renewal requires leaders to help organizations adapt to changing environments without losing core identity. And this is going to be the key because your organization, especially if you've worked for a place for a long time and it's been around a long time, has a key identity. The identity might be shifting a little bit and you want your key identity to be there. And so you want it to be there with longevity. And so the thing is you're trying to, how can we be innovative and at the same time keep the identity the same? And of course, it's going to be very important for us to do that. So this is the transformational leadership by Bass that we were talking about. Renewal leadership aligns with inspiration, motivation, individual consideration, inspirational motivation, and then individualized consideration. And so if you really break this apart, it's really a customized kind of setting because what happens is I know you, you know me, and as we work together, I inspire you to actually do different things because I know what's positive in your life, or I know what I can say that's going to be positive to you. And so what happens, you have individualized consideration. That might be totally different than I would say to someone else. And we typically see that. This is the Hives and Linsky renewal. Renewal requires leaders to help organizations adapt to changing environments. And so they've got it in an adaptive model, but they've got it in a cyclical. And that's exactly how this works a lot of times because you're going to go through renewal and you're going to go through renewal again. You're going to go through renewal again. Every time you have a new surge of technology. If you go all the way back to when computers first came out, and everybody started buying computers and everything started going to automation, this was a huge paradigm shift. And so you're seeing it with different types of technology that has really driven it. And that's one of the things that you're going to see, I think, with AI as you look at this. Here's some other theories of renewal. Lewin's change model. This is a very popular change model. And so this is where you've heard unfreeze, change, and refreeze. If you've heard any of that phraseology, it comes from Lewin's change model. Transformation operates at the system level. Renewal prevents systems from becoming refrozen. And so unfreezing means that's where you are right now. And so you have to break it loose. You're frozen in time or frozen in that position. So how do we break it loose, go through the change, because that's where your progressions and all your projects would be. And then once we get over here to the other side, now we refreeze this and re-anchor this so it runs with the new technology, the new mindset, and the new direction. That's what you're trying to do. But listen to me, don't stop there, because guess what's getting ready to happen? After you refreeze over here, guess what? You've got another change coming in that's going to cause you to unfreeze again, go through change, and now you're going to refreeze once again. That is your lifestyle. We are changing so many different things so fast. That's what's happening. And then Cotter, the Harvard professor that I love reading, this guy, he really speaks to me. Maybe he does you too. But he has Cotter's change leadership model. Renewal fuels the short-term wins and cultural anchoring stages. And so Cotter has really gotten a lot of publicity over the years with this, because he writes in such a simple mode as he talks about this. And this is what it looks like. This is Lewin's, I'm sorry. This is Lewin's change model. So you can see this unfreeze, change, and then refreeze. And of course, the emphasis is on transformation. And then this is Cotter's change leadership model. Renewal fuels the short-term wins and cultural anchoring. And so you've got the cultural anchoring and you've got short-term wins. And of course, all of these fit within the project management world, and all of these organizations use it. Let me give you a couple more real quick here. This would be Adie's. Adie's connects to the organizational life cycle theory. Without renewal, organizations naturally drift toward bureaucratization and decline. And what he says is you can't just stay the way you are. That's basically it. If you stay the way you are, you'll start going downhill. You'll start losing things. You look at businesses all through history, and you'll see businesses that, because of things changing, they are no longer needed. For an example, I heard a guy speak, and he had me cracking up, but he was so true. He used as his example buckets. And he said, in 1800s, do you know that buckets was one of the number one things that people bought? Buckets. And of course, if you think about it, what was happening in 1800s? Well, people were buying buckets because they hauled their water and they washed outside, and they brought it from the river and brought it up. Buckets. And he said, so guess what? How many buckets do you think people buy today? And he named a number. And he said, that's all. And in 1800s, everybody had multiple buckets. Everything was a bucket. And what he used that to say, we've changed. We don't even think about having to have 20 buckets at our house, because we're not hauling water. We're not washing our clothes outside. We're not doing all those types of things. We have different technology today. And that's that evolution that we're talking about. And then Adidas supports the dynamic capabilities theory from Thies. You'll notice that renewal threatens the organization's ability to sense, seize, and reconfigure. And the reason why I think this is an interesting one to include is this renewal causes us to have to be different. And not everybody's geared for renewal. Let me say this. Your organization is going to restructure. Your organization is going to renew, has to be different. Not everybody's geared for this, because sometimes people are much more connected. In the past, we used to think it was the older population age-wise. Many older people are like that, but you'll see some young people like this as well. It doesn't have to be an age thing as much as it is a mindset. If we are one of those that's kind of kicking and screaming as we're making changes, then you might have that mindset, but yet you might be physically, you might be one of the youngest people in the job. But what happens is our mindset is something like that. Let me show you real quick here the other piece of this, and we'll move on. Organizational life cycle theory. This is Adidas. So without renewal, organizations drift. So notice they talk about startup, growth, and then bureaucracy, and then decline. We have to watch out for this, because you'll see this in companies where it happens. And when we start that bureaucracy where everything is a rule, and not that you don't have to have rules and policy and procedures, but we start focusing more on the bureaucracy rather than we do the company, making the company grow, making the company expand, and keeping it updated. Over on the on TISA's side, dynamic capabilities theory, renewal strengthens the organization's ability to sense, seize, and reconfigure. So we're sensing, we're seizing, and of course reconfiguring renewal. And this is a personal level too, personal, but it's also at the company level, the organizational level. How are you running projects differently today than you ran them 3 years ago or 5 years ago? What's your thought process when you're running projects today compared to then? All of that should have had some evolution just because of exposure. And then McKinsey 7S model. So I gave you several of these because a lot of these are being used right now in your AI programs, and also a lot of these. Some of these are actually carrying on over into PMI's world. McKinsey's one of those. The 7S model. Renewal requires alignment of strategy, structure, systems, shared values, skills, style, staff. And then OKRs, we're familiar with those, objectives and key results and methodology. So it's focused alignment around renewed priorities. And so we are purposely driving in those directions. And so this is a model of McKinsey's 7S model. And so you'll notice you've got renewal in the middle, but guess what it touches? It touches all these other things of skills and styles and everything else. And so it's very powerful what you're impacting with that. And then if you look at your OKRs, those are always pretty simplistic. You've got an objective, and then here are going to be the key results that come from that objective. And that's why you're doing this. So if you're creating change in your organization, your very specific change is your objective, but you're going to have some key results that are going to come out of creating that particular change. And so if we go to technology rather than a human in doing something, that's going to change the dynamic of how that works in that situation. All right, let's move into project leadership strategies that position initiatives for momentum and cultural renewal. So let's go a little deeper in that area. So project leadership strategies, you clarify the strategic why before the tactical how. So many times we want people to do something, to move to a new direction, to try something new, but we don't explain enough. I'm starting to find that even reading graduate level papers. They explain, they'll explain something that needs to happen, but they don't tell the why or the how. And so what happens is you kind of leave that open-ended. So why are we doing this and how are we going to do it? Because those are going to be your steps. The how is going to be your process. So establish psychological safety to unlock ownership. Build cross-functional alignment early, often. Create short-term wins without losing long-term vision. Model the culture you're trying to build. Leverage feedback loops for continuous cultural renewal. Sustain momentum beyond the project lifecycle. As you look at some of these strategies, what this does, this tells us that we're going to have to open up communication and build a psychologically safe atmosphere where people can look at this and say, hey, I don't understand or don't agree, and they're not going to get their head bitten off because they don't understand every piece of it. Because once again, you're hitting a moving target a lot of times out here, and you're getting your people to go along, and you're there, but guess what? They're not. You got to bring them along with you. You know what it is. You've been in the meetings. You have the dream. They don't have the dream yet. So you have to give them a chance. And it's always going to be after leadership has the dream that your people will come along. They're not going to just catch it in one meeting. It's going to take several things to influence them. Next, let's clarify the strategic why before the tactical how. Project managers and executives often mismake movement for progress. And so we have some movement, we think we're making progress, and actually nothing's happened. It hasn't moved the project forward at all. We see this in project management all the time. So strategy answers what are we trying to accomplish and why does it matter? Tactic answers what steps will we take to get there? That's going to be the piece that we live in. And so people work hard, but go in the wrong direction doesn't accomplish anything. So we want to make sure we're taking proper steps going in the direction that's going to strengthen and support that strategy. That's what you're wanting to be doing. So are our teams busy? Or are they aligned in doing the proper things? How many times have we worked on something and you feel like you accomplished nothing? This is what this is really speaking to. We feel like we haven't accomplished anything. We go in the wrong direction. And so, man, we were fast, but we were fast wrong. And so what good did it do? Do project activities support project outcomes? And so you're looking to see how important is what we're doing to what that output is over here. Now, the other piece is what happens when the why is left out of the information given to the team. You'll have a strategy drift. Why? We have different impressions of that strategy. I heard it from one executive, and they told it. We hear it from someone else and they tell it differently. And so emphasize something differently. So what happens is that strategy will drift. Teams will start losing motivation. Why? Because we don't know why we're doing it. If we know why, we can get on board. Your teams will be on board. Scope is easier to creep because we don't know the why. Metrics become activity driven rather than outcomes. Everything we need to do should be a deliverable, an outcome, a reason. We're not just working hard and just doing stuff. We should be driving toward that outcome or that deliverable in everything that we're looking at. So let's look at it like this. Renewal only happens when alignment replaces fragmentation. And so many of us run projects that are kind of fragmented in some situations. So we have to look at that. Is it possible that my project is fragmented right now away from a strategy, and we don't know what strategy it aligns to or what strategic goal it aligns to? Would it be better if we could realign that and get that in some type of setting to where we know our project's connected to that strategic plan? Of course it would. It would just help all of us to better understand. And it might totally be, but we haven't communicated it down exactly the way we should. All right, so psychological safety. Let's go back to that topic for a moment to unlock ownership. People are not going to do something or try something if we don't have psychological safety. The group that's in DC that I get to train with, who've tested so many of the seminars that you guys have attended, they have psychological safety. They have leadership they're not wanting mistakes, but when mistakes happen, there's psychological safety for people to disagree agreeably, share different ideas, and then they make a decision as a unit and they go forward in it. And so that's that psychological safety. So these folks have ownership like crazy. And the leadership is in there with them for all of this. So if there's no psychological safety, fear an atmosphere of punishment for mistakes. I'm not going to try something unless it's guaranteed I'm going to make it. And if you've seen people like that, or if you're like that, you know what I'm talking about. If it's not psychologically safe, then I'm going to do nothing unless it's a sure thing. Well, think of what that's going to do to your project. It's going to slow your project down. It's going to mean that we're cautious about everything. And we do need to be cautious, but I'm saying we're almost dormant, waiting for absolutely everything to be perfectly in place. And all of us know that in project management, everything's never perfectly in place. Man, I mean, that's one of the things we do. It's like herding cats sometimes, isn't it? I mean, you're doing everything you can to get it going and inching that project forward. It could be public embarrassment if there's no psychological safety, questioning, disapproval, retaliation, reduction in team support, or increase in blame. It creates that play it safe environment. That's what we're trying to get people to do. We want people to step out, but if it's not psychologically safe, we can pretty much forget it. They're going to play it safe. Nobody wants to be the weirdo that gets blamed for everything. Oh, did you hear what happened to Mathis? Mathis blew a big project. Nobody wants to hear that kind of stuff. That would be horrible for us. The other part, building cross-functional alignment early and often. Alignment can influence not only the processes, but also how decisions are made, identify all functions, agencies, departments, creating that collaborative vision, setting sessions to create clear goals and deliverables, and discussing collective success metrics. What is our metric? We got a metric for our project. We're measuring cost, time, and scope. So we measure that like crazy. How do we know that this is going to hit that main strategy, that main strategic goal? What are the metrics for that? What are the metrics for that deliverable, for that outcome? All of those would be components of this. Also, alignment requires joint meetings to synchronize the future steps and outcomes, holding joint problem-solving meetings, creating a shared dashboard for tracking the metrics, increasing the communication for current progress and future steps, identifying quick wins to build momentum. All of these things build that environment and that team synergy that we want so bad, but yet so many times we don't do it. Do you congratulate your people when they reach a deadline, or when they give a deliverable, or they reach an outcome? Those are some of the easy things that we can do. Congratulations, you reached that deliverable on time, and we're able to work those problems out. That's awesome, and congratulate them. That takes nothing except for us just to verbalize it. Also, creating short-term wins without losing long-term vision. Short-term wins can either build momentum or create false confidence. So poorly designed wins would optimize what shouldn't be optimized, lock in outdated processes, and exhaust teams without strategic payoff. So they're doing a lot of stuff that we're focusing on, but it doesn't inch the project forward. It doesn't hit the outcome. It doesn't move to the deliverables. Also, well-designed wins reinforce the right future, buy trust and capacity, serve as stepping stones, not detours. Everything that we're doing with well-designed wins is building us and moving us to that deliverable, moving us to that outcome, so that people are picking up speed and they realize, wow, we thought we had 200, we had 200 story points we still had, or user stories. We're down to 100 now. And so we are making progress. People are understanding how that's working. The other piece of this would be modeling the culture you're trying to build. This is a walk the talk type of thing. If you want your people to act differently and believe differently, you're going to have to demonstrate it. So foundational steps, identifying 3 to 5 behaviors that show the desired culture. What kind of culture do you want? Connecting behaviors to business outcomes, walking the talk and lead in a way that aligns with the new future. You want your people to collaborate? Are you collaborating? You want your people to share? Are you sharing? All of us have to come back to that, walking the talk. It's like the old saying that we maybe heard from our parents. We think, do what I tell you to do, and not what I do. And the truth is, they're going to do what we do. They're going to look at us. So address the gaps between words and actions. Remove anything outdated, such as a policy, a process, or an SOP. Make sure all of these types of things are not still in place, because you're going to be evolving all of those with new technologies and new ways of doing things. Talent, modeling the culture. Hire new people for a cultural fit and transformational mindset. IT and all your technology people are having to look at things totally different, because they're going to be involved in AI projects. So training in those areas is needing to skyrocket. Create performance reviews that support the new behaviors, the new culture. Many times we have performance reviews that support basically, did you get here on time, and did you stay all day? Or did it's basically time rather than achievement. And so what do we want to do? Remove those that are undermining the new culture. You'll have people who'll smile to your face and behind the scenes, I knew this wasn't going to work. I never did like this. I don't agree with this. And so they're doing a lot of doing some bad behavior behind. Those people will need to be dealt with. Maybe not terminated, but they definitely need to be talked to as we do that. Leveraging feedback loops for continuous cultural renewal. So communication, make sure there is consistency of messages across the channels. I can't tell everybody I want teams to make decisions and then turn around and step in and trump every decision that the team has made. I can't do that, because what you're trying to do is get the team involved. Share successes, share failures, establish safe spaces for evaluation and feedback. All of that's going to create momentum for you as you do this. Sustaining momentum beyond the project lifecycle. So think capabilities, not just deliverables. Shift from one-time outputs to organizational capabilities, such as process skills, data, technology that can be reused and improved. One of the big things that's happening right now with AI is, as you're building your data pipelines for artificial intelligence, you're looking for ways to build your data pipelines and how to allow them to be reused in various places within your organization, because the data pipeline is what your AI tool is going to be pulling from. And so you're looking at so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel on every AI tool that we're trying to use within the system. Dynamic capabilities research shows firms that continuously sense, seize, and reconfigure resources sustain advantage after major initiatives, because what you're doing is you're also upgrading the skills and reskilling your people. It's not just what they brought in that they're still using today, but what are going to be those new skills that they need. Also, governance that outlives the project. Replace temporary project steering committees with standing councils. Could be a digital council, customer experience council, whatever the name we come up with. Integrate new practices into existing management routines, quarterly business reviews, strategy refresh sessions, performance dialogues, ensuring a single person for accountability for each major outcome, so that everybody knows who's clearly accountable for those particular goals and objectives. Momentum typically drops after you go live. And here's the challenge with AI. AI is never really finished. It's not like a software project. It's not like an IT project. Because an IT project, we put the tool in and we do updates as they come along, but we're not having to retrain that. In AI, you're going to have to retrain it because of model drift and because of model drift and data drift. And so this is not done. You're going to have retraining periodically when that model or that data starts slipping and you're not getting the output that you want. So project complete is not the same as value realized. The value starts going down when that model doesn't respond the way you want to, and that's going to signal a retraining. So leaders have to budget time, attention, funding for the post-project runway. Stay visible as the face of change for at least 6 to 12 months post-implementation. There's going to be a lot of tweaks. Even though we think we've done a lot of things right and have, we still have tweaks. So you're going to line the top team around consistent messages, consequences, priorities, so middle managers are not receiving mixed signals and the employees are not receiving mixed signals. The other part of this is going to be knowledge transfer, learning between projects. Knowledge transfer is a huge driver now in the PMP test and has been brought in all the way back to PMBOK 7 and is reinforced again with PMBOK 8. So knowledge transfer is huge. We're trying to transfer knowledge to everyone, not only to our teams, but also to the customer. And so studies of lessons learned shows that most organizations document lessons learned, but rarely use them. And many of you know that it's difficult because you got so much pressure to move on in these areas. And so knowledge often dies in databases instead of shaping future work. And that's one of the things that people need to be realizing. If we're not using the lessons learned, going through the motions of that is not accomplishing a whole lot. And that lessons learned is what's going to save us down the road because we're not going to repeat those same mistakes. Research on project-based organizations find that successful knowledge transfer requires formal structures, processes, roles, time allocated, and that time for learning activities is often squeezed out by schedule pressure. And all of us have experienced something like this, I'm sure. Now let's move into developing frameworks that unite teams around new priorities. So you share the why, clarifying the priorities, you share the why now and make it critical and straightforward, define the problem or the opportunity in a sentence. And so you have to shift from X to Y to be able to achieve Z by 2027. And so if people understand exactly what they're doing and why, you gather evidence with 3 to 5 data points that make the case, you discuss the risk of not changing in the next 12 to 24 months. So if you knew you had to make this change or your company was going to be vulnerable to be bought out by somebody else, man, that would wake people up because they understood what the goal is, they understood what the repercussion is. It's that kind of thing that we're needing to get out. Not that somebody's going to buy every one of our companies or everybody's going to lose their job, but making it as clear as possible so people understand the why is going to be powerful. Also, equipping middle management as translators. Often a short manager workshop, how to translate enterprise priorities into local team goals is huge because the top people understand and they've shared it with management, but the further you go down a lineage, the less people have a tendency to understand. So give managers tools such as create a decision log template of how they applied the framework to a decision, recognize and spotlight managers who model the new way of working. And what happens is even though you tell it, guess what? You're going to tell it and tell it and tell it. Why? Because people hear bits and pieces of it. And especially if it's a huge shift, they're still trying to figure it out how they fit into this huge shift and what's going to happen to them. Now, our next piece that we're looking at is overcoming resistance to renewal by leveraging communication, trust, and stakeholder engagement. So common communication-related resistance. Uncertainty about why renewal is necessary. If people don't understand the why, guess what? They're not going to move as fast. A confusion between renewal and failure. Mixed messages from leadership, saying one thing, doing something else. Assumptions, fill information gaps. Rumors and informal narratives are overtaking facts. Rumors are horrible. So that's the reason why you're having to have a clear the air session every so often. Overly technical or abstract explanations. Change fatigue caused by constant reframing. We're hitting a change and then we're changing the change and now we're changing the change that was changed. Oh my gosh, poke me in the eye. All of that will cause your people to think, here we go again. So the change needs to be clear and directive. Not that you're not going to adjust it or tweak it. Of course you will. And then lack of visibility into the progress and decisions, letting people see how some of the decisions were made or letting them set in some of the meetings to be able to hear what the next steps are going to be. You are hitting a moving target, though, sometimes, and some things are going to change. And so can we be able to talk about those in the right way? Also, what communication restores? So, can we share an understanding of the purpose, clear distinction between correction and criticism, confidence in leadership intent, alignment between strategy and daily work? Nobody gets it right typically on the first try. We know that in projects. We have a great project plan and we got great team, and then we miss it a little bit, and we have to adjust it a little bit. Most people don't get it right the first time. And guess what? When you're making this type of change in the organization, you're not going to get it right. There's what you know is that you don't know it all. What you know is that there's something you don't know. And so you're going to have to pull your team together and pull management together, and you're going to make decisions on something that you did not know was going to happen in that project. Common resistance to renewal through trust, fear that renewal is a precursor to downsizing. This is huge. People are fearful of losing their jobs. That's why people are so hateful about AI, is because of that piece right there. And so will some people lose their jobs? The answer is yes. The long and short is some people might. But there will be more jobs probably created, just like the internet. The internet has caused some people to lose their jobs. Some professions aren't here today because of internet, but internet has typically opened up more professions. So that's the same scenario there. Suspicion of hidden agendas, past experiences of failed or resets, belief that leadership won't follow through with what they say they will, perception that accountability is selective, anxiety about personal relevance or competence, a concern that feedback will be ignored or punished. Oh, they say they want our feedback. They say make sure we send them an email, but what they really want us to do is rubber stamp what they've said. All of that can come up. On low psychological safety. In other words, we're presenting something from another side. Is this going to be something, even though it doesn't follow what they think, will they even consider it? Will they even look at it and consider that it might be an issue? Now, what trust restores? A willingness to engage rather than withdraw. An openness to feedback and adjustment, courage to admit problems early, and shared ownership of outcomes. The bullet points on this slide absolutely are mandated if we want that team driving this alongside us. We've got to have this, because here's the thing. Think about this: openness to feedback and adjustment, courage to admit problems early. Listen, do I want a problem to happen later or earlier? Earlier is always what we want, but nobody's going to bring that problem or raise that that's a problem if they're scared that they're going to get their hand slapped. So we've got to be able to make it safe for someone to say, hey, this is what's happening, and here's what I've done, and you're letting everybody know, because you know it's not going to turn into a blame game. It's going to turn into everybody's going to rally around to help fix this and plug the hole. That's what you're wanting to have happen. Now, here's some stakeholder resistance issues. This was decided without us sentiment, and many things are decided without us. And so some of that is just based on where you are in the organization. And so upper management, guess what? They're upper management. They can make any decision they want. But after they've set the strategy and the strategic plan and those type of things, you're wanting that information to funnel down. So feeling that renewal is being done to them rather than with them. And so in other words, look what they're doing to us. Perceived misalignment of priorities. We don't think it really aligns. Where we sit, it doesn't align at all. Our local impacts, not acknowledgement. Lack of influence over solutions. Token involvement rather than meaningful input. They ask for input, but they don't take any of our input. So eventually, guess what? We don't give input. The other piece would be over-reliance on a small leadership circle. We've got 3 people we listen to and nobody else. Our frontline insights are ignored. Your people who are working and running a lot of these projects, they see stuff that nobody else sees in the organization. And so you're wanting them to feel the freedom to be able to escalate and to be able to give ideas upline. And that's what you're wanting people to do, is to be willing to take those and listen to those. Also, what engagement restores? As we get people engaged, they have a sense of ownership. It is great to see somebody who loves their company, loves where they work, and they are one of them. It's a family kind of feel. Practical insights that improve execution. They have thought of ways to be able to do this the best way in that environment. Also, alignment across functions and roles. Everyone feels part of the camaraderie of where we're going. And then commitment beyond compliance. We're not just complying. What do we need to do to make it even better? What do we need to do to be better? What do we need to do to make our teams better? Any of those, you feel that camaraderie that's there rather than, well, I'm just drawing another week of paycheck, all just going through the motions. Now, let's go into our last little section here, sustaining renewal efforts by embedding practices that encourage continual improvement and adaptability. We have to be willing to continually improve, and we have to be willing to adapt. The PM skills that we need for tomorrow are going to include AI. So we've got to be able to start understanding, how is AI going to fit into my world? How is it going to fit in my world as I run AI projects? How is it going to fit in my world as the tool that we're going to be utilizing so many times? So scale with confidence, cost and resource constraints. So AI isn't just a software expense. It includes infrastructure, maintenance, people, high initial investment, ongoing cloud and computing costs, time and resource strain on teams. Encouraging insight would be a phased approach, helps organizations reduce risk and manage costs better. So what you're looking at is, how can we scale this project? Now, I put AI in here because that's what I knew I was going to use as an example, but it could be anything. How can we scale this to be able to do this as safe as possible and as fast as possible? Because speed is always going to be one of those. Now, let me talk about something that we have just started. This kicked off this year. This is called, we have a YouTube channel for this. And so it's called 7 Minutes to PMP Exam Mastery. And so what this is to help people who are trying to pick up their PMP. So many of you I know have gone through our boot camps, but you might know other people who are trying to do this. And so what I have is that each video is somewhere between 7 and 9 minutes. And so I take a different piece of the PMP. All of this is current with the new PMP, the way it is now and with what's coming out. And so I take a 7 to 9 minute video. And so I think there's 15 on there right now. I think it's what it is, 12 or 15. And we do 2 a week is what we do on a different topic for just the PMP exam. And so this is free. It doesn't cost you anything. This is, you can search it, called 7 Minutes to PMP Exam Mastery is what it's called on the YouTube channel. And so this is a new free service that we're giving. The other thing I just want to mention to you, just to remind you, we're in our second year doing a monthly AI Simplified. This is on artificial intelligence. And so AI Simplified, it allows you to be able to, we take a different topic of AI and we bring it out. We talk about different aspects of it. And so we have all of them on our website, so you can go back and pull any of these off in PDF. Kim typically sends it out to people who have signed up. So if you want any of these and you want to go back and get some past issues of this, but we're in our second year on this. And so we'd love to have you remind you that that's on our website as well. Also, next month, what our webinar is going to be on: strategic visionaries guiding portfolios toward future value creation. And so in April 6th, now I want to talk about April 6th for a moment. We typically do this on Friday, but April is so crazy with bookings, I don't have a Friday available. And so this is actually going to be on a Monday. And so I want to make sure we've built years of doing it on Friday, but here comes this. It's either that or skip it. And so April 6th is actually going to be on a Monday. And so I'd love to have you be there. And if it messes you up, I apologize. You'll get the video, but I don't have a Friday in April. But the rest of these are all Fridays that you'll see here. But we're going to talk about strategic visionaries guiding portfolios. And then free mastermind group. So we do a 1 week mastermind. We have 2 more free ones for people to be able to jump into a PMP mastermind. We help them with their documentation. They get to ask questions. I do 2 Zoom calls typically so that they can ask anything, and it kind of helps them kind of understand what the sequencing would be as they're trying to decide whether they do a PMP or not. And so love to have some of your people in there. These are free. Just get on our website and they can sign up for that free as well. And then we do a boot camp, a PMP exam prep boot camp every other month. And so they're changing the boot camp in July. They're changing the PMP test in July. And so that means our material will be changing. And so April, our new material will actually be coming out from PMI. And so we will be doing our April boot camp with the newer material, even though the test won't change till July. We don't have a choice in it. That's what PMI has said is going to happen with every ATP. And so we will, this next one that we will have in April 14th is when the material comes out. And so we will have our boot camp on the 20th. And so there's more than enough for you to be able to pass the test and have that under your belt before the major change of the test happens in July. So love to have you in some of these. And of course, as always, let me pull it to this. If I can help you in any way, I'd love to do that. You can send contact us through the Mathis group or send an email to me or call the 800 number. I'd love to help you any way I can. So I hope you're doing well. I hope you get ready for summer, as it's a beautiful day here in Missouri. And I look forward to seeing you guys at a boot camp or another webinar or something. So thank you so much for taking time this morning and watching this. And God bless you and have a great summer with your family. Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.